to the Buzz Pound.
Smith scores, and the Carolina Panthers win in overtime.
A Queen City sports podcast covering your Charlotte Hornets and Carolina Panthers.
Halliburton, nowhere to go! LaMelo's done it! LaMelo's done it! Hornets win! Here comes LaMelo.
Here are your hosts, Ian Blair and Cam Gardner.
Ian, welcome back, man.
It's good to be back. Sorry, been a busy last few months, so I'm glad to be back and back in the swing of things, and hopefully, get this routine going in 2025.
Hey, you got a lot of things to be happy about. For one, your new opportunity. Not sure if you want to share that or not, but you got that. And how about your team, Ohio State?
Yeah. Dude, it was a great game last night. Just relocated to Atlanta, and the national championship was in Atlanta, so it was ended up going out, and it was pretty crazy around the city with both Notre Dame and Ohio State fans, on top of, the Georgia fans and all those fans you see in Atlanta, Georgia. But it was fun. I'm glad the boys got a win, and it's been since January of 2015 since the Buckeyes won a national championship, so that was definitely nice.
Hey, nobody was stopping that team, especially after I saw the way they annihilated Oregon. I was convinced that nobody was getting past them, and
Yeah.
especially Notre Dame. I mean, yeah, they had a good first drive, but once Ohio State caught heat, it was over with.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a great game. I'm glad I got to live through another one, and at least one that I remember. I remember the 2015 one, and obviously now in 2025, it's just been nice. It was definitely surreal for a moment, and yeah, glad that team was really good. It's one of the best Ohio State teams I've ever seen in my lifetime. So, if
No
not the
doubt.
best, but yeah.
Hey, no doubt. Hey, and what was it? What, 20 million in NIL in that team?
Yeah. I mean, that's how you gotta, we talked about it. I think, one of the last episodes I was on until the break, we talked about it. That's how you have to win nowadays, is you gotta spend money in the NIL era, and you're gonna be left behind if you don't spend money. So
I mean, that's why you're seeing a lot of teams that weren't necessarily in a, playoff or just winning conversations for a long time. Now you got a lot of them that are doing better. I mean, they can bribe people in with money at them. So it's
yeah,
changing the whole dynamic. But hey, it's, so far I'm enjoying it.
yeah.
It's different, but that's just where college sports is going.
Yeah, for sure. I think the NCAA will crack down a little bit on just the rules and everything. It's kind of the Wild West right now because there's no regulation. But I think there'll definitely be some rules in the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, especially the way some of these guys getting paid. Some of these guys getting paid more so than some of these professional athletes.
Yep. Yep.
But anyway, Buzz Pound, we're gonna go ahead and get into what you all are here for. But I'm gonna say it again. Welcome back, Ian, man. Proud of you, man. Happy about everything you're doing on your end. Los Bravos. Congrats on that.
Appreciate it.
So these Panthers, man, we're a few weeks from the season ending. Great game to end on January 5th, which happened to be my birthday. That was a perfect birthday present. But just give me some of your thoughts and expectations going into the offseason. I know we ended on a good note. Most Panther fans ended the season feeling better than the way we started, losing those first two games. It was night and day of a performance. So,
Yeah.
the past two episodes when I did these episodes solo, I gave my personal thoughts, but I'm going to let you spill your thoughts on this one here, and I'll just piggyback off you a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, last time I talked to everybody, we kind of got beat down by the Cowboys, and we ended the season on a 2-1 record, which was nice to see, and ended at 5-11. Obviously, not the season we wanted, but we were able to get the win against the Cardinals in overtime, which was nice. Chuba Hubbard touchdown, kind of making up for his fumble against the Buccaneers early in the season in overtime, and followed that up with an excruciating loss to the Buccaneers, 48-14, and then another overtime win in Atlanta against the Falcons for the last game of the season, 44-28 or 44-38, excuse me. And yeah, I mean, the boys really ended on a high note. I think Bryce continued to play well, especially in the Falcons game, the last game of the season. Bryce really impressed me, especially, and a lot of people I got feedback from a lot of different people on my end, just saying how good Bryce looked and kind of rewriting the narrative around his name and kind of starting to perform and look like a good quarterback. But yeah, now going into the offseason, I think it's going to be this team really needs to, I wouldn't say make a ton of moves, but we definitely need to improve in a lot of different positions and bring in some weapons for Bryce and surround him with the pieces he needs to succeed. And the defense is a big question mark going into the offseason. I think the defense this year didn't play very well. It was interesting to me that we brought back Avaro, our defensive coordinator. He's had his ups and downs. He's shown he's been a good coordinator at times in previous years. I know last year we had a good defense, but this year is just not a good defense, and it's just disappointing to see down the stretch. I feel like we could have came out with some more wins if our defense picked up the pace a little bit, but
I mean, when you allow the most amount of points defensively in NFL history, it should be no question that you got to go.
yeah.
To me, I mean, I was very surprised that they're bringing him back, but clearly they trust him. They trust him not to do that again. But like you said, there are a lot of pieces everywhere that needs to be, or areas that need to be fixed. It's going to be an interesting offseason between the draft and the offseason, whatever moves they decide to make. Moves into my next question. What do you think the Panthers need to focus on upgrading more in the draft and the offseason? Do you think it's offense or do you think it's defense?
I think it's definitely defense without a question. I mean, and I think the first, it's going to start with the draft, and obviously free agency is going to play a big role in it. We're going to dive into later in the offseason kind of some draft prospects we want to see, maybe some free agents we want to see the Panthers sign on defense. But yeah, I mean, obviously having the 8th overall pick, I believe in the first round, if I'm not mistaken, hoping for a good defensive player. There's going to be some options on the board, definitely in the early first round. The free agent market, we really don't know for sure 100%. I'll have to look at it a little bit in the next couple of weeks, but who's going to be a free agent? 5th-year options, obviously, are going to be a factor in a lot of free agents and stuff like that. But yeah, I think defense is without a doubt really what we need to prioritize going into the offseason.
No, I definitely agree. It's definitely defense that needs to be focused on. I don't know what exactly I expect them to do per se. I'm not sure if they're going to try to go for any defensive weapons in the draft with their pick. I hope they do. I mean, I hope they also do what they can in the offseason. But like I mentioned before, I mean, they may have to look at parting ways with certain pieces to bring in some new pieces. I'm sure, I don't know if you listened to one of the past episodes, but I mentioned the possibility of even having let go of Shaq Thompson. I mean, I know he's only like 30. I know he's not crazy old, but just injuries. He didn't last long this season at all. And you definitely want something that's going to at least work for us long term. Both him and Derek Brown had injuries, and Derek Brown is a bit younger, so I can trust him a little more as far as getting back healthy and longevity. But, in order for us to really revamp, we got a lot to do. And sometimes you got to, omit some things that are currently there in order to bring better items in. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that, but that's just how I'm kind of looking at it right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Shaq's on a fairly team-friendly deal. I don't know if we would move on from him. That's definitely food for thought. I think a lot of it is just the defensive pieces need to stay healthy. It was nice to see J.C. Horn play an entire season. Missed a couple weeks. I believe he missed the last 2 weeks against the Buccaneers and the Falcons, if I'm not mistaken. But he played really well this year. Had some penalty problems, some holding, grabbing problems early on in the year, but kind of cleaned that up down the stretch and ended up being a Pro Bowl alternate, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it was nice to see him healthy for a full year. It just sucks that we didn't have Derek Brown and Shaq Thompson and a lot of these guys that got hurt really early on in the season. It's kind of been the same thing the past couple of years for Shaq Thompson. He's been getting hurt with season-ending injuries early in the year, and he doesn't play at all really. He hasn't played in the past couple of years, and it's been disappointing to see. But definitely, we need to improve on the receiver position. I think we need to get younger at that position. Jalen Coker obviously is going to be a good piece, but I think Adam Thielen is kind of going towards the end of his career, and Xavier Legette still a really good option. Hopefully he can progress a little bit and kind of clean up some of the drop issues he had in his rookie year, but he's still young and got a lot of room to develop and hopefully improve upon his rookie year.
I agree. I mean, between Coker and Leggett. Coker, without a doubt, I believe he is a good piece to have for our future. I think he could be a standout receiver in this league. Leggett, still a few things to work on, but he's got a lot of promise. And I think under the right leadership and direction with where this team is going, he can improve with the rest. He's young, just like the rest of the main core of our team. But as I stated on one of the past episodes I did, yeah, Thielen, like you said, older toward the end of his career, but you can't deny he is reliable for the most part. He can get you yardage, he can get you some decent catches here and there. But we can't have him as like our wide receiver one. We need a true wide receiver one. And I know a lot of names that's been floating around is like Garrett Wilson or T. Higgins, who were more than likely parting ways with their current situations. I don't know how likely those are, but someone I feel like that at their caliber, young, but been in the league long enough to be a vet would definitely be a good option to have for Bryce Young, someone he can depend on. Like I said, someone that's not as young as Xavier Leggett and Jalen Coker, but also not someone as old as Thielen either. And I would personally be okay if we kept Thielen around. He's okay to have his option, but we can't just continue to rely on him every time. Father Time showed with him this past season a few times.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I agree. I think it's going to be an interesting offseason in the NFL in general, but guys like Garrett Wilson, who's just about to enter his prime more than likely, and obviously T. Higgins, who's shown that he can be a wide receiver one in the NFL. And speaking of T. Higgins, he's opposite of Jamar Chase, which that receiving room is just stacked over in Cincinnati. But T. Higgins would be a great option for this team, and I think he's definitely shown that he has potential to be the number one option in NFL offense. Same with Garrett Wilson. Obviously, I love Garrett Wilson because he's a Buckeye, but he's definitely suffered a little bit from bad quarterback play, and he's kind of shown flashes throughout his NFL career and showed it obviously in college. His ability and his athletic ability, and kind of that he could be that number one guy in a perfect situation, a good situation. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think we need someone that's like 26 or 27, kind of right entering their prime or in the middle of their prime, because we kind of getting guys right now. Our receiver room is Adam Thielen, who's older and past his prime, and then Xavier Leggett and Jalen Coker that are yet to enter their prime and still really young. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's going to be a interesting offseason. I do have a question for you, Cam. Who would you draft right off the top of your head? Who would you draft with the 8th pick?
That's a good question. At the moment, I don't have a particular person, but it would definitely be a defensive pick for me, because that's just really where we need work. I don't want to draft another young offensive piece, which we already got and seem to work with them very well. But I would need a little more time to fully decide on who I would pick.
Yeah. I have 3 names in mind on defense. I think two of them are going to be gone before 8, and then I think one of them definitely will be around our pick, if not, a couple picks before us. I think my number one pick that I would love, he's not going to fall to us, but Abdul Carter from Penn State, the edge rusher. In the playoff, showed really, really, really a lot of talent and a lot of ability, and really performed really well. And reminds me a little bit, I know this is a lazy comparison because they both went to Penn State, but they both wear the same number, but Micah Parsons, man. Both edge rushers, both the, kind of the same archetype, same build. And I think Abdul Carter is, wherever he goes in the NFL, is going to be really a great player. I think Travis Hunter is another option. I don't think he'll fall to 8 as well. He'll play. There's no telling what he'll play in the NFL, corner or receiver, maybe a little bit of both. I don't think he's going to be full time at either position. I think they'll probably, if I had to guess, they might have a couple packages in. In my opinion, he'd play corner and have a couple packages, maybe once every couple weeks on offense. I don't think he's not going to be a every play, every down guy on both sides of the ball in the NFL. And then my 3rd pick, Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, really good interior presence, kind of similar to Derek Brown. I think he played really well opposite of Derek Brown. Actually beside Derek Brown, but a guy that could rush the passer from the interior and also really good against the run. I think he would be a great pick. And then there's other guys that are going to go high first round, like Will Johnson, also from Michigan, the corner, really good player. didn't play a lot of this past season, but definitely his freshman and sophomore year showed really that he's got a lot of talent and is going to be a good player in the NFL, in my opinion. But yeah, there's going to be definitely a lot of good options for the Panthers to choose from at 8 if we choose to go defense, which I think we should. And it's going to be interesting to see. It's definitely going to be a really big offseason for the Panthers because we need to surround. I think we have our quarterback, and I think we need to surround him with some pieces so he's able to succeed. And as we both mentioned on defense, we just got to shore up the defense and stop giving up so many points.
Yeah, I agree. And if you didn't mention Mason Graham, I was gonna throw his name out there. Like I said, it's just still a little early for me to just fully decide on. I'm not one of those guys early on, like right after the offseason, that's like, we should get this guy, we should get that guy. As we get closer to it, see the combine and all that, that's when I really start to kind of come to who I pick. I'm just one of those late guys that kind of decide then, unless, like that year when we drafted Cam Newton. I mean, we already knew.
Yeah.
That's a different story. If it's a situation like that, yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. But just when you're at a situation like at an 8 pick, knowing there needs to be some work on both sides, but mostly on defense, I just want them to make the right pick because we cannot allow what happened this past season to happen again defensively. And, I trust with the leadership we got, the way Dan Morgan and Canales are working together, I think they'll get it right.
Yeah, we can only hope. We definitely need it as Panthers fans, and it'd be nice to have a young defensive piece. I believe the last one we drafted was J.C. Horn, if I'm not mistaken. We drafted, the linebacker out of Kentucky that played decent this year, but in the later rounds this past draft, and some guys in the later rounds. But it's going to be interesting to see what we do with with a top 10 pick. That's going to be a really day one starter and a guy that you really need to contribute early on, and hopefully have a long career.
Yeah, let's hope so. That's all we can do. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the Buzz Boys. Charlotte Hornets, a 3-game winning streak. What you think about it, man?
Yeah, it's huge. It's really, I hope it's not too late. I know it's not, at least for a play-in spot, but it's kind of, we were waiting on it and waiting on it and waiting on it. And we got down to, 28 losses and we weren't playing well. And, the boys were able to string together 3 wins in a row, which is huge. And going into the game tomorrow night against the Grizzlies, I think definitely another winnable game. And I think there's a strong chance we go to 4 straight and kind of start stringing these wins together, which we really need to if we want to make the postseason in any capacity. But Mark Williams has started to play really well. He's had a stretch of really good games, and Nick Smith Jr. going in the starting lineup he's been playing really well too. Kind of what we wanted to see early on in the year. He's kind of shown that he's going to be a viable piece in the offense. But yeah, it's huge. We've been able to string together 3 consecutive wins, and hopefully we could follow it up tomorrow night.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, we got the Grizzlies tomorrow. After that, we got the Trailblazers and the Pelicans. So we got a lineup of games we could win if our core is the same core that we've used the past 3 games, minus Brandon Miller, unfortunately, with that torn ligament in his hand or his wrist. Hopefully he comes back strong. But, I mean, man, yesterday against the Mavericks, LaMelo Ball, 23 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists. Miles Bridges, 23 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Nick Smith Jr., 19 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. Mark Williams, 13 points, 13 rebounds, my bad, and 2 assists. It's pretty solid. I mean, it hasn't been often that, our main core of guys have played together, and adding Nick Smith Jr. to the starting lineup was a big help. Like, it might be their move to make for the rest of the season if he can continue doing this, man. He really, and I knew he had it in him, but it was just the right opportunity because, like, early in the season, he was not playing much at all. They had Micic playing, and you knew how I felt about him. I know there were a few games where he was somehow found a way to contribute, but I'm liking this core 4 guys playing together, especially with the absence of Miller.
Yeah, definitely huge. And it's nice to see Mark Williams back on the NBA court and able to contribute coming off of injury and kind of showing that how good of a player he can be. And hopefully he can stay consistent and string together some good games. And gonna be interesting to see tomorrow night, obviously going in and hoping that Nick Smith Jr. can contribute. But yeah, what about that trade?
Hey, like I said, I mean, hopefully it's a win of a trade because, in my opinion, they're kind of on the same caliber. They're not stars in this league. I mean, both are, well, at least Nick Richards, he was young. He came in with LaMelo, if I'm not mistaken. I hope the best for him over in Phoenix. But I'm going to miss him because he actually finally started to get his groove with us. Last year he wasn't accustomed to playing starting minutes and playing as much. This year he came in with the absence of Mark Williams. He really got more aggressive. He may not have done a whole lot of scoring, but getting rebounds and all that, he found this skill there. So I'm definitely going to miss that. But hopefully with Okogie, he can come in and, gradually get his pace with the team. I mean, he's new, so he's going to have to learn the system of these guys and the staff. But I'm not opposed to it. You definitely want another center behind Williams because hopefully he's able to be healthy the remainder of the season. I mean, when he's healthy, he is such a good player for us. But, when he's out or even when he's sitting out for a little bit, you want another center that's able to contribute. It doesn't even have to be just as good as him, but close enough or, enough to be able to get us, opportunities to be back on offense to score or even take it to the rim itself. But I'm not opposed to it, man. I mean, it caught me off guard a little bit. I knew there were conversations about, Nick Richards. I think it'll work out for us for the most part. Best to him. Hopefully he can contribute to that team over there who are in the midst of trying to figure things out there with their core three guys. So hopefully he doesn't find himself in a worse situation. Hopefully he's still able to develop and he's still got time to become at least a notable player in the league, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And obviously with the trade deadline coming up, would you expect any more moves from the team?
Just knowing the Hornets organization, they're going to do something. I'm not sure how big or how little it may be. You got a lot of people now saying to team LaMelo up with Zion Williamson, which is pretty up there. That I'm not sure how they would maneuver that. Somebody's going to have to go. Some important piece to the team currently would probably not be there if they did that. That's a big risk if they're going to make that move. Earlier in the season, they talked about possible Lonzo trade. You can get him for cheap right now since he hasn't played for the past 2 years. I know I've seen some mock trades sending like Cody Martin and Micic to Chicago for him. I just don't know if we need another guard at this point, but hey, I mean, he seems to be healthy for the most part, and he's still, making other people around him better. He's one of those, in my personal, vocabulary, a true point guard, like pass first type, and it's not many of those anymore. So if they did that, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But they haven't spoke of many trades regarding us like the past few years. For an example, you always heard that Terry Rozier might get traded, little things like that. And he did eventually. But if it's something like Alonzo or some trade, it might be that type of level. I think I don't think it would be like a big time trade at all. Because, everybody in that organization is pretty much, new. The owners, the GM, the president of basketball ops, the coach, his staff. I mean, everything's just new. So I think they're all just kind of learning with what they have currently. But we'll just have to see because we all know how crazy those final few hours, the deadline can be. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think, as you mentioned, I think Lonzo would be someone to look out for. And then I think from our end, I think potentially moving on from a guy like Miles Bridges. I think if we were to try to go and get Zion, I think it would take a piece like Miles Bridges to get that done. Hypothetical, if we were to try to get Zion Williamson, you mentioned it would take a big piece, and I think it would be someone like Miles Bridges or of that caliber. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. It's going to be a interesting deadline all across the NBA. There's always many trades that happen. The trade deadlines and across all major league sports are always really interesting because there's so many trades within a short period of time. And usually that's when the big star players get moved. So it's going to be interesting to see, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, not with just our team, but just see what happens in the league as a whole. There's a lot of people who aren't happy with, or, that aren't happy with their current situations. People like Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal. I'm just curious to see what's going to happen there. Because those are some notable ones. And, obviously we're going to be really paying attention to what our guys do, but should be an interesting day overall. But February 6th, that is the deadline. I can't remember what exact time it is that day, but I would definitely be keeping Twitter close by because that is always seems like every minute, especially in that final hour or two, it's always something going down. So
yeah, for sure.
Well, I guess it's time to go ahead and move on to some Carolina college hoops.
Let's do it.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and start with UNC. UNC currently sitting at 12-7. Up next, they play Wake Forest tonight, actually. Tuesday, January 21st at 9 p.m., 8 Central. Still hoping these guys can win some more games to at least make a tournament spot. Like I previously mentioned, they're not winning nothing this year, but, hopefully, the way things are going with NIL, hopefully they can get some other higher star players in and get us back with the ranked teams, hopefully in the top 10 moving forward after this season. On to the Duke Blue Devils sitting at number 2, 16-2. Those guys are balling. They play Wake Forest as well up next Saturday, January 25th at 4:30, 3:30 Central. And good old Wolfpack, NC State, sitting at 9-9. They play SMU Saturday, January 25th, 12 p.m., 11 Central. So Duke, man, they're really representing the state of North Carolina very well. I'm a UNC guy first, but can't help but, respect those guys. They are very fun to watch, especially with their young star they got, who is more than likely going to be a top pick in the draft. So, depending where we fall, we could land them.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to bet on that, though. I wouldn't put my money on it, knowing our luck.
Yeah, for sure. With our luck, we'd end up with the number one. I know I texted you this earlier last week, but we'd end up with the odds to land the number one pick and somehow fall to like 4 or 5. That would just be our luck. But yeah, Cooper Flagg, man, having him in a Hornets uniform, and him, LaMelo, and Brandon Miller, and Mark Williams. I mean, it's just, you could dream about it all you want. That'd be 4 players right there. You're just missing a 4, or really a 3 or a 4, depending on how you wanted to move that rotation around. But yeah, that would just be crazy. I think that lineup, just even thinking about it, would be incredible. But yeah, definitely Duke's playing really well, and North Carolina at this point is kind of fighting for a March Madness spot. It's kind of a down year, but they still got a lot of ways to go. I know they play Duke at least one more time, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and they still got always some good opponents on that schedule that will definitely be good wins when the committee is looking at resumes for March Madness. But yeah, I think Cooper Flagg, did he score 40 here recently? I believe he scored 42 against Notre Dame on January the 11th, which is just incredible. Scored 28 Saturday, the 18th of January. Yeah, he's really playing like out of his mind. I don't think anybody expected this level of dominance in his freshman year of college.
No, not at all. And I'm hoping, because he's one of those people you hope whenever he does decide to go to the league that it'll transfer well, because we've seen stars in college, but people get to the league and just can't transfer well. But I'm hoping that for him, because he's so fun to watch. He is someone I'll definitely be paying attention to once his career at Duke is over. He is so fun to watch. They are, as a whole, fun to watch. I'm gonna just have to, because I know UNC, if they do make it, they definitely won't last long the way they're going, even though you never know with March Madness. But with Duke, if they're the ones remaining, I'll definitely be pulling for them Blue Devils, just because of representation of the good old state of North Carolina. So
yeah. Well, as always, BuzzPound, we appreciate y'all joining us for episode 18, the big 1-8. It's nice to be back, and nice to finally be back in a routine and be able to record on a weekly basis now that I'm all settled in Atlanta. Yeah, back at it. So as always, you can follow us on both X and Instagram at BuzzPoundPod, and you can listen to our podcast on both YouTube and Spotify at BuzzPound Podcast.
And as always, keep pounding and keep the high mentality. Welcome back, Ian.
Appreciate it.
Right. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Buzz Pound. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and let us know what you thought of this episode. Until next time, this is the Buzz Pound.